Now we turn to Doug HELTON. At an early age, he also started his career at Marshall at KMHD. Wonderful how they all get mentioned on this program.
The boys.
He continued the normal small to medium to large market progression all the way again to that Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. With a great voice and a marvelous work ethic, Doug was in demand by all the best and highest rated radio and TV stations. After being heard and watched by many, he turned to the Texas State Network, now owned by CBS. Of all the personalities in broadcasting, Doug is probably heard by more people over a wider geographical area through TSN's over 100 affiliates statewide. Doug, along with other TSN familiar voices, are in the potpourri sound booth. Okay, Doug, was the transition from small to large markets a difficult task for you?
Well, let's give this a shot.
Okay.
First of all, I really appreciate you giving me my very first opportunity in radio. I'll never forget. I want to tell a quick story. I graduated from high school and was about to start junior college at Panola Junior College. And I had a friend who was in radio. And I really didn't know what kind of career, what I wanted to do with my life. And I walked in literally off the street and asked Tony for a job. And he said, "Have you ever made a demo tape before?" And I said, "No." And he assigned me to Tim Case. Do you remember Tim Case? And Tim Case put me in a studio at KMHT and gave me something to read. I don't remember what it was. And Tim said, "Do it like you're acting." And I did, and Tony heard it, and he hired me on the spot. And I've always been so gracious about you giving me that job. That was very important to me. From Marshall, I stayed at Marshall for 20 months, moved to KNOW in Austin, which was a top 40 radio station with a great news department. Best at that time in Austin, to go to the University of Texas, and started working there at night as a reporter, street reporter. My very first year, I was in Austin. We won a George Peabody Award for news reporting. That was almost unheard of for a small, medium market radio station at the time. And ironically, I still remember this would have been in 1972. The subject was marijuana and the law. And Texas at the time was considering, at that time, any possession of marijuana at all was a felony. And Texas was considering lowering penalties for small amounts of marijuana. And it was a long series of mini documentaries. And fortunately, we won an award for that. From Austin, I moved to Dallas. Had worked my way up in Austin by that time. I was there 2 years. To Morning Drive, doing Morning Drive newscasts. And for those of you who are not familiar with radio, everyone, if you ever make it to Morning Drive, that's where the place is to be. The most listeners are there. That's what you strive. Your goal should be for Morning Drive. Someone heard me from a Dallas radio station and called me, and I went to work for Gordon McClendon, the legendary Gordon McClendon at KLIF in Dallas. At that time, when I arrived at KLIF, I still couldn't believe that I was there. And at that time, KLIF was pulling, it's hard to imagine now with radio, but KLIF was pulling a 25 share of the audience. 1 out of every 4 people in the Dallas-Fort Worth market was listening to that radio station when I went to work there. It was amazing. And we had 16 radio stations in Dallas-Fort Worth at that time. Today there are 33. So after my stay at Cliff, Gordon McClendon sold the radio station. When he sold, I left. Bounced around a little bit in the Dallas market, worked at WBAP for a while, was very thankful to be there. And Texas State Network gave me an opportunity to go to work for them in 1993, and have been there ever since. Now, today, I pretty much oversee our newsroom operation for the network. Really restrict myself to where I only do 2 newscasts normally a day, and they are both 15 minutes long. One is at 12 noon, and the other is at 7:30 in the morning. And it takes a lot of prep time to do those newscasts. As Tony mentioned, we're heard by, I'm happy to say with TSN, 1.3 million people a week. And that's, and the funny thing about that is, when you make a mistake, as Tony mentioned, the phones light up. Whether I had an anchor day before yesterday who, we have a state representative from Alpine, and his name is Pete Gallegos, Texas State Representative. We had an anchor who has probably used that name 100 times, but for whatever reason he said Pete Gallegos. And I got 2 phone calls within about a 30-second span saying, tell that guy that's on the radio it's Pete Gallegos. And so, but I enjoy, I've been in radio now 37 years, wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. I could quit tomorrow and say that I've had probably the best time of my life, and it all goes back to Tony Bridge hiring me for my first job in Marshall. I'm very appreciative of that, and you know that.
After listening to Doug, I think you understand why I hired him. You are a great talent, and I'm very proud of you.
Tony,
And yes,
do you realize I forgot to do something?
what is that, sir?
Hand out the questionnaire.
Oh, you sure did.
I can take care of that in just a second.
All right,
You
now,
just keep talking.
yes, what Dave is talking about, we have some clever little questionnaire things that you can write on, and he will collect them and send them to the front, and you can ask a question of any of our panelists that you so choose. Now, if you get too involved in your question, where it would take us 30 minutes to answer it, we will then ask you to visit with us after the show is over. But in the meantime, we would welcome your questions, and as you go around, don't hesitate to ask us anything you want. I'm going to take a second here, because we are running a little ahead of time, to say that was a very good presentation from both of you young KMHT stars. I will take a moment to say concerning Gordon McClendon that the first station that Gordon actually owned was in Palestine, K-N-E-T, and he had that for a while, but his ambitions were greater, so then he finally gets to Dallas and creates the 1190 KLIF.
Liberty Broadcasting, Tony. Remember
Pardon?
Liberty Broadcasting?
Yeah.
Did baseball with it, with sound effect?
He did indeed, and I actually went by there and saw him do that. He did it with a Western Union type teletype machine, and he had a bat hanging from the ceiling, so whenever they hit it, he took another bat and hit that bat, and they'd roar up the records of the thing. And anyway, I say that to say this. My wife's family's claim to fame was my wife's mother taught Gordon McClendon in Sunday school in Idabel, Oklahoma. That was where that young man grew up. His daddy, Barton McClendon, owned one of his first theaters in Idabel. And so when Gordon got the franchise to broadcast the Dallas Cowboys, I thought, well, So I called him and reminded him of all that, and I said, now, Gordon, I'd like to run a telephone line from Toll Test Marshall, that's the central office, to Toll Test Dallas, and Toll Test, each station had a hookup there, and take that broadcast from you. I'll carry your spots and just save 3 or 4 for me just to have some income. And he said, sure. So KMHT in Marshall became the second affiliate of the Dallas Cowboy Radio Network. Anyway, and then since I had KLUE in Longview, I just shipped it on over to Longview, and that became the third affiliate of the Dallas Cowboy Radio Network. Nobody had ever heard of them. We got all kinds of tickets to give away for all home games, could hardly give them away. Now, can you imagine how precious they are? Anyway, a little trivia from the past. It happened in East Texas radio.